Hello everybody. My name is Richard Layzell. I'd like to welcome you to Colchester, the town of my ancestors. And this new building, First Site, is recently opened, and it caused some controversy because it took over some land which belonged to the bus station. But in terms of cultural imperialism, as a local expert, I can tell you that the current bus garage took the place of the Victorian theatre. So the theatre was lost to the bus garage. So there's some justice in this new building. Just a bit of housekeeping. If there is a fire, which there won't be, but if there is a fire, you just go through the main exit or the main entrance and assemble on the green. The bathrooms are through this door. And we'll be putting you in the groups of 6 for the workshops a bit later on after the speakers. I just wanted to say a few things before I introduce Sally, the chair. I kind of thought about the different roles I've had as an artist, or the different names that I've had, and I think artist is a sort of challenging word. It's a great word, and it's also a confusing word. We are all artists here, most of us. But I've certainly had other terms used, and I've used other terms. For example, designer, facilitator, mentor, lecturer, performer, presenter, maker, communicator, editor, camera operator, photographer, writer, curator, invigilator, administrator, director, producer, researcher, trainer, consultant, commissioner, manager, host, chairperson, hello, social commentator, practitioner, gardener, dancer, teacher, interventionist, anarchist, painter and decorator, facilities manager, visionaire, environmentalist. And I'm sure you have many labels too. So what does the label artist mean in 2012, when the visibility of the visual arts is perhaps higher than it's ever been, when it perhaps feels more establishment than it has ever felt, when investment is seeping into seemingly radical practices, when the market is increasingly bearing down on our public museums and galleries. So, for example, Tate Modern and White Cube may show the same artist at the same time. And as this whole shebang is rolling along nicely, does it leave public funding on the margins? Perhaps. So where does this leave all of us, artists and makers, and AIR, with its 17,000 members? I'll tell you where it leaves us. It leaves us center stage at a time of change and challenge, as well as the links, which are quite spectacular, that AIR is beginning to make. It can give us links with what's still called the underground in Eastern Europe, where the art market is thought of as a sellout, and with the artist-led movements of Canada and Australia. We can redefine ourselves and reinvent ourselves continually. We can play to our strengths. We can be empowered. We can learn from other people's experience in other fields, as we are going to today with our great lineup of speakers and facilitators. We can be mavericks and networkers, and we can rest assured that all our creative endeavors and innovations are of value, however small they may seem to be. They accumulate and create change. And thanks to organizations like AIR, we have a voice, and that collective voice is changing all the time. So just to give an example of a small action that created a bigger voice, the Norwest Media Centre in Bristol is a very embedded community project of, I think, sort of international caliber, really. And I was fortunate to be selected for a commission there to explore data, live data, in that very impoverished part of Bristol, very problematic part of Bristol. And I simply thought of one thing I might do, which was to stand in shops and see what people actually bought in the local shops. And that created a certain momentum where people started to take that more seriously, that I wasn't collecting till receipts, I was actually there as a person meeting the shopkeepers and writing down what they bought. So maybe, Dave, we could click on one of these buildings now. Magazine. Paypoint fags. Coke. Booze Paypoint. Dog chew, milk, white bread. Crisps. Paypoint. Lottery. Lottery. Crisps. Fags, ham. Booze, tobacco. Okay, Dave, you could fade out the sound, thank you. So no judgment, it's just life. So, thanks for listening. I'd now like to introduce Sally Sheinman, the chair of AIR. Sally.
Welcome to OpenAIR, AIR's first annual forum for our members. With over 17,000 members, we are now the largest ever UK-based membership body. I'm not good at giving speeches, so you'll have to bear with me. Established in 2007, AIR's mission is to be the voice of practicing visual and applied artists through discussion and debate. AIR identifies and explores the issues that impact on artists and practice in order to campaign for artistic legislation, economic measures to enhance artists' working lives and advance their professional status. Over the past 12 months, we have formed alliances on behalf of artists with the Scottish Artists Union, 2 members of which are here today, if you want to wave and say you're here. With Turning Point Network, I think there's a representative from Turning Point here today. Where are you? Yeah, hi, Julia. We have also created international contacts with the European Council of Artists and the International Association of Visual Arts. We have also made contact with CARFACT, the Canadian Artists Association. In addition, we are working with Access, Turning Point, ArtQuest, and other visual arts organizations. We are developing benefits for members with providers such as the Royal College of Art. As a council, we base our activities on your needs and opinions. To this end, we undertake the Big Artist Survey each year, but today is a chance for us to hear you talk to us directly about how you can affect change and what change you want to see happen. We are here to listen. We know that AIR provides artists with much needed insurance, but together we can achieve so much more. We need you to become active in your regions. We want you to stand for counsel and join us in the fight for visual artists' needs. I want to say a few thank yous. And I would like to thank First Sight, especially Laura Early, Judith Stewart, the volunteer note takers and technical support, and Kinura for providing today's live webcast coverage. Special thanks go to Lucy Day and AIR Council members Caroline and Mitra. You want to wave, guys? And for all those hardworking over the last 7 months organizing today. And we want to welcome the Scottish Artists Union and the Turning Point. And Jane Knight. Where's Jane? Welcome, Jane. She's the chair of AN. And now I want to make a special presentation, because without this person, the AIR would not exist. It's a little, with her little stroke of genius, I think we're getting a voice. Susan Jones, would you like to come up? And thanks, Sue not only had this idea, but she acted as the secretariat for AIR for the first year. Thanks from all of us. Now is the time for artists to be proactive and to find your own destiny. One voice is a whisper, but together we can roar. Now, enjoy the day.
Thanks, Sally. I just wanted to mention the 3 note takers sitting at the front here, and there's 3 more to come. I'd now like to introduce Carrie Bishop, who's giving the keynote. We have a dilemma, and the dilemma is that the lights are either on or off, and we've looked at this, but I'm afraid if we're going to get anything on camera, we have to put up with this. So I don't know how it's going to be for you, Carrie, with the slides.
I don't mind, actually. Okay. The slides are, well, I can circulate the slides afterwards if people want to see them, and also they're more to keep people sort of entertained than they are particularly informative, so there's not like bullet points or anything that you need to be reading. I don't have a clicky thing for the slides, so is it this thing here? Which isn't, turn it on. Okay. Okay. So thinking about Richard's list of labels that he reeled off for us before, probably the most common thing that people call me is a geek or a nerd, which I'm choosing to take as a compliment in this instance. So not only am I sort of a tech geek, I'm quite into technology and that kind of stuff, but I'm also really glamorously a local government geek. So that's kind of how I spend a lot of my time. So I run a company called FutureGov, and we work with local government to help improve it, mostly using technology wherever we think it could be helpful, but also design thinking and kind of working with them to change. These are some of the people we've worked with. And this is a town hall. Pretty much the one thing most town halls have in common is that they tell the time, and it kind of looks like a fortress, and that's pretty much how local authorities act. So we are kind of these, I guess, militant optimists. We think things can change, even despite the way town halls look, and we think we can make them more open, more transparent, more in touch with people, and ultimately completely change the way local services are provided to people. It's a big ambition, and that's why we need to be militantly optimistic about it at all times, because if we ever stop to think about the scale of the challenge at hand, we'd probably just kind of crawl back under the duvet. But somehow we end up sort of relentlessly keeping on. You'll recognise this name from your programs, but it's something that I know Dan talks about passionately, is just rethinking entirely how power is distributed, and that's what we do in all of our work. So with that, we work both with local authorities inside them, but also outside of the system as well. So we do the full spectrum of things. And so we work a lot with communities, helping them to completely redefine the types of services that are offered to them and how they provide them. And I'll talk you through a couple of our projects and that kind of stuff so you can see what we do in action. But then we also kind of, put our arms around local government and give a local council a bit of a hug and say, it's okay, it's all right. Like, we want you to change, and as long as you want to change, we'll help you, we'll do it together, it's okay. Because you get lots of people who are kind of quite militant, but perhaps a bit less optimistic, and they kind of throw stones at local government and kind of say, everything the council does is rubbish, and that kind of thing. It's really hard to be on the receiving end of that and still want to change. So what we do is kind of give them a kind of hug, sometimes literally, and kind of bring them along with us. So one of our projects that we do is called Casserole. This is kind of in development at the moment, and it's one of those projects that's like on the outside of government, I'd say, for the most part. Although we're doing it sort of in partnership with Surrey County Council, they certainly invited us in and said to us, well, okay then, if all what you're saying is true, prove it. Come and do something that's different and unique. As we've been doing the Casserole project, we've been doing it kind of pretty much outside of the boundaries of the council. I'll explain why as we go through. So Casserole is a project that basically connects foodies, people who love cooking, people who are really into their truffle oil and all that kind of stuff, with older people who just need a really well-cooked homemade meal. Kind of like a community-delivered Meals on Wheels service. So, you know, maybe you've got a large family, chuck a few extra portions in with whatever you're making, and then drop it around to the older person a few doors down. That's the kind of stuff that used to happen all the time and doesn't really anymore because of various kind of like societal factors. But the reality is, you know, local government is spending millions of pounds on Meals on Wheels services for older people that pretty much fail on every point apart from delivering a meal to your house. But on every other count, it's pretty much a universally terrible service, from the nutritional value of the food itself right through to the fact that quite often these meals are just sort of like flung at the older person as the delivery van screeches on, and that actually that's a real opportunity for social contact with older people that's being missed at the moment, and that kind of real building of community. So we thought, is there something we can do that's different? And that kind of addresses this problem. So we set up the Casserole project, which is a kind of a matchmaking service. At the moment, it's a man called Mertz. That's Mertz up there who runs the project. And he is the technology. So although we're passionate about technology and web technology and that kind of stuff, actually, we don't want to rush in there and kind of start building big systems because we don't even know how it works yet. We don't even know how to match people up safely yet. So Mertz is the person who's doing the matching, and then as Mertz is doing that, he's recording everything he's doing, and then we're kind of working out, okay, how much can a human do and how much should a computer do? And the way we've gone about it is just by getting out there. Market stalls for us are becoming one of our kind of key tools, which is kind of weird. We hadn't really thought about it before, but Mertz went down to a food market in Red Hill where we're doing the trial. The team baked loads of cakes, and Mertz just went there and chatted to people, gave out free cakes, talked to people, and I'm really inspired by the kind of whose data example, because it's a similar thing, you know, just getting out there and having that face-to-face contact rather than sending out surveys or, you know, those kind of things which we see councils do all the time. This is a much more human way of interacting. So that's the Casserole project, and that's one of those kind of outside of government projects. It's kind of in prototype stage at the moment. We've tested it a bit. We're learning from what we've tested, and now we're going to do the next iteration of that sometime later on this year. This project is the Patchwork project, entirely different council, an entirely different set of problems. This we set up in the wake of the Baby P case, because as the details of that case started coming out into the media and we could see what was going on there, we realised that there, as well as kind of some grossly professional incompetence on the part of some of the practitioners there, and no computer can ever fix that, equally, there were a lot of missed opportunities between practitioners, you know, like social workers who just didn't know that the health visitor had only been round that morning or that an appointment had been missed. And we started to think, you know, the tech that we use every day, Facebook and Twitter and the things that keep us connected to each other, surely that kind of technology could help in some way. So basically, we spent a really long time stalking some social workers. We followed them around with a video camera. We asked them loads of questions about what they did and generally bothered them to find out what are the problems, what's causing this situation where we have these horrendous high-profile cases. But, you know, that's just the tip of a really big iceberg, which is near misses and, frankly, a lot of young children and young people just lucky that they don't end up in the same category as Baby P. So what we did was, again, worked really closely with the people at the sharp end of this stuff. We talked to health visitors, social workers, teachers, doctors, anybody who's kind of responsible for child protection. We worked with them to understand what the challenges were and then what's the one thing we can do to make it helpful. We had this idea, it was going to be amazing. We're going to join up all these databases and we're going to be data feeds and we're going to come down and we'll spew out this stuff. And then everyone was like, that's going to cost you £20 million, it's going to be a 20-year job. And we were like, that's not the kind of change we want to have. We want to do something small, we want to do something quick, and we want to do something helpful, and ideally something delightful, something that makes social workers go, wow, that's actually really saved me some time, that's actually really helped my day. So we talked to them for ages, we sketched out some stuff, we took it back to them, we asked them, what do you think? Then we built it, then we gave them a go with it. So we really kind of like involved them in the process, and in many ways they designed this, and we just kind of built it for them. And what you end up with is a thing where you enter the name, because when you're a social worker, you walk into a new client's house, you've got no idea who else is working with that client. And the client might say to you, oh, Becky from the housing told me X, Y, and Z. then you've got, as a social worker, you've then got to go away and figure out who the hell Becky from their housing is and call up every housing association in the local area to ask if they've got a member of staff called Becky. I mean, it's literally like that, and social workers waste days of phone tagging people, just trying to get hold of the right person. So this system is lightweight, it's web-based, it doesn't link into any big databases. You enter the name of your client and all the details that you have. If any other practitioner is also working with that client, you'll immediately see who they are, where they're from, and their phone number. And that's it. That's pretty much all the tool does, which you would think is a fairly basic thing. And we certainly did. We were like, really? That's all you want? But actually, just that information, and just to have a phone number, the right phone number to call, is like revolutionary for people in these roles. And the thing is, like, we thought about maybe we put some messaging in, or it would be a really cool communication tool. But actually, you've got a degree in social work probably, you're highly trained in this area, you're an intelligent human being with professional discretion, go and have a phone conversation. That's all you need to do. Sometimes it doesn't have to be everything doesn't have to be high tech, it's just enough tech that will help. And this is them having a go with it. So those are a couple of projects that we're doing, both. So Casserole is kind of like that sort of outside of government, kind of community-focused stuff, whereas Patchwork is very much inside of government. It's really working behind the scenes with the system. And Simple is another thing that we've done, which is a kind of a platform. So if you've got an idea for any project which kind of is vaguely similar in style to these kinds of ideas, revolutionary, kind of doing things completely differently in a sector, you stick it up on Simple. And the thing about Simple is it's like it's kind of a place for ideas, but a kind of a resource exchange. So councils don't have any money, right? And asking them for money is like kind of you're on a hiding to nothing, and quite often you'll just get laughed out of the room, especially if your idea is in its infancy and hasn't got a track record, isn't proven, and blah, blah, blah. But what councils have is loads of stuff at their disposal. Space. I mean, council chambers lie empty pretty much most of the day until the kind of evening council meeting. Like, they have office rooms and boardrooms and, all those kind of places that you actually could really use for free to convene people. It costs them nothing to book a room for you in their system. They have, servers and tech people who can help kind of, give a little bit of their time to put stuff together. They have, lawyers and experts who can read things over. They have all kinds of resources at their disposal and skill sets, and even just sitting down with them and going, look, we've got this idea, what do you think? Any good or not at all? And even if they go, it's a terrible idea, here are all the things that are wrong with it, that's really useful. To us, that's invaluable, just to test our ideas out with, because that won't put us off. Like I said before, we're militant optimists, but it will make us think, okay, these are all the challenges people are going to come up with, these are all the barriers they're going to put in front of us. How do we systematically then go about knocking each one of those down? Because we won't be stopped, unless the people who are then going to use the tool are the people who are telling us it's the wrong thing to do, and then we'll really listen. So Simple is about sticking your idea up online and then people offering resources and anything that can help make that happen. And crucially, and I think this is really important in the change process overall, it's not just about an online community, it's also about doing stuff offline. And it's brilliant that you're all gathered here today to talk to each other and make those connections, because then if you do take things online afterwards and have chats on Twitter and that kind of stuff, you'll know who each other are and your connections will be that much stronger. And I think offline engagement is really, really important. So we do a kind of speed dating thing where we get people to pitch their ideas and then pitch what resources they can offer, and speed dating is quite a good rapid fire thing because it gets people out, like everyone's nervous, nobody wants to network, how boring is that? But when you're kind of chucked into a situation where you've got 3 minutes to pitch something, you very quickly get over that kind of social jittery stuff. And then we do sort of longer style events, kind of what we call hack days. So we bring together developers from Google. We do these events in partnership with Google. We bring together Google developers, designers, people who've got skills around business modeling and planning, people who do marketing and that kind of stuff. And we bring them all together and we thrash out some problems. So up front, we use our Simple platform to identify, like 10 ideas that are potentially going to change a particular area. So the last one we did was for older people. We did it in partnership with Google and a thing called Grandsnet. Don't know if you come across that. It's a sort of online social network for grands, essentially. It kind of does what it says on the tin. Those guys are feisty, let me tell you. But they came along to Google and they kind of got together with these sort of young student developers, and they were like, these are our ideas, this is what we want, this is what we think will make the internet easiest for us to use. Google geeks, make it, and they did. And it was really cool, and we came out with 10 products at the end of a 2-day weekend, which were fantastic, and which crucially had come from the older people themselves. One of them included like a real-time waiting system for the NHS, so it would ping you and tell you your appointment's delayed by an hour. Excuse me, don't bother leaving home yet. Which for an older person, not wanting to sit around in a hospital waiting room, excuse me, is really important. So offline is just as important as online. So those are the kind of things that we do. These are some of our projects. Some of them are really great. Some of them are kind of in their infancy. Some of them, are sort of inside a government. Some of them are outside. And I guess, so part of it is, we play this dual role, kind of working with the system, but also our kind of stealth mission is basically let's kind of try and destroy any control or kind of sort of government kind of run things, because actually we think people know what they need much better and they know how to deliver it as well. It's just being given the right support and tools to make it happen. So, like thinking, what we quite often do is just identify something that we think is rubbish and go, let's just reinvent that. Let's just change that completely. Right now we're thinking the sort of adoption and fostering kind of systems are really not working for people. The government it's doing it on its own now. That's quite weird. No, it's going the wrong way. It's like you're getting a preview. Don't know if that's going to make it. No. 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 Oh, no. Oh, dear. Okay, we might be going the right way. No. Don't know what I'm pointing at. And now it's frozen. No. Still the wrong way. Oh my God. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Should I turn it off and on again? Because that's kind of the usual geek recommendation, isn't it? Off and then on and then back. No. Okay, well, let's just sort of wing it. Like, I'm sure I can remember what I've written. So basically, adoption and fostering, that's what I was talking about. Kind of, we're thinking that system's not working. The government started talking about how, kind of a policy desire to change that system. So we're thinking, okay, well, what's wrong with it and what can we do better? Equally, the CRB checking system, I imagine some of you probably come across that in your travels. It doesn't work. If you've got a CRB check, all it proves is that you haven't been caught yet. So what we need to do is, not you people, of course, what we need to do is completely rethink that. Actually, I was reading a really cool article yesterday, which is about mathematicians in Silicon Valley who use huge, vast data points in things like Facebook and social networking. And they use principles which are used abroad in nuclear weapons security threat modelling. And they use that kind of data modelling that they use for that to identify the potential for fraud in like eBay users and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, is there a way that we can do, if eBay can do that, if eBay can kind of figure out who's going to kind of try and screw the system, can we use that for CRB checking? And is actually a more effective, kind of more intelligent way of doing things. So those are kind of the things that go around our ideas. And so basically we find stuff that's crap and try and make it better. And one of the slides that you might have seen is our kind of motto, which is JFDI, which is just do it. Like, don't kind of spend time having committees and talking about things and worrying about the risks and, give like 5 minutes thought to that stuff and then do something, anything, start somewhere and just make something happen, because I think lots of people want to see change. They whine and whine and whine about what's wrong, but they never do anything to fix it. So like a case in point is the benefits system. There's lots of changes recently to the benefits rules. You may have seen some of that in the press, although weirdly it wasn't that widely reported. Basically it means people with disabilities are pretty much being thrown under the bus by the government. Apologise if that's too political, but it's kind of also fact. So do I apologise if political? Not really, no. So what we decided to do, there's lots of disability rights groups campaigning really fervently around this, and rightly so, that's their job and they're doing it well. But we're not really kind of campaigny like that, we're kind of more action-oriented. So what we did was we threw together in a week, 10 days of organising, we threw together an event called Benefits Camp. We got anybody and anybody who's interested in benefits, people with disabilities, a few older people, someone from the DWP, somebody from a kind of workfare program, a whole bunch of people, the full range of people who are interested in benefits and allowances. We got them all together in a room. It was quite shambolic. The internet streaming hardly worked, but we got everybody all together in a room, and we were like, right, what are the ideas? How can we fix this? What can we do to help things? Maybe we can create an alternative, a parallel universe to the benefit system. Is there something we can do with people who've got a little bit of money that they've been given? Can they take that? Can they reinvest that? Can they do social impact bonds? I don't know if that's a familiar thing. You get a loan from the government if you promise to make stuff better. Can you do that on a micro level for like an individual? There are kind of ways that we can completely disrupt this system. Or equally, are there just ways that we can help people who are on benefit to make more out of the money the little money that they do receive? So could we go into kind of like group buying systems where, have you heard of Groupon? That's a thing on the internet where you say, yeah, I'll take that offer up, and then you get kind of 50% off something because you've all committed to going and buying that thing. So are there kind of group buying systems that people can do to make resources, what little resources there are, go even further? We had a whole day of that, came up with some really cool things. Somebody's now, as a result, making a kind of a benefits entitlement calculator, because there are things that tell you what you need, what you're entitled to, the amounts you're entitled to once you know what benefits you are allowed to claim. But there's nothing that tells you what benefits you're allowed to claim in the first place. You have to go and speak to a human being about that, which is kind of weird because they're all rules-based, right? So a computer should be able to do that, and much better. So yeah, I guess like that's our kind of approach, is let's not kind of just shout about this or kind of throw stones at the government. Well, maybe one or two, but on the whole, let's not moan about stuff. Let's try and fix stuff, and let's show that there is a better way to do it. Let's prove our point in a really practical sense, and that's kind of what we try and do at all times. And the way we do that, as I said with Benefits Camp, is we bundle things. We get everybody in. We don't just kind of go, oh, well, we're only going to talk to people who are kind of like affected by this in a sort of direct sense. Actually, we get anybody who's interested in this agenda to come along to something. And this, I mean, I think this, I'm glad we're on this slide because actually those connections are what kind of makes the ideas richer, and that's what makes the inspiration come in from much further afield. And, like, the more open you are, the more kind of out there you are. We sort of said, as soon as we had the idea for Benefits Camp, we put it up online and we said, who's with us? Because actually, if it was a rubbish idea, people would have just gone, oh, no, I can't be bothered with that. But actually, maybe like almost 100 people came back within a day and said, yeah, I'd be up for that. And that's because we put everything out there. We're not kind of like, we're really bad at kind of keeping things to ourselves, honing them until they're perfect, and then giving them a beautiful launch, partly because we're just big mouths, and we can't really keep our mouths shut about exciting things for long enough. So we kind of go, oh, and there's this other cool thing, and then we're like, oh, we were supposed to launch that. Oh. So that happens to us all the time, but actually kind of works for us, because the more you put stuff out there, and the more you kind of waffle about things, and the more you talk to different groups of people who you wouldn't ordinarily get to talk to, the more you use the web for that, which is kind of, you don't need a lecture on how empowering the web is, because I see there's loads of Twitter activity going on, which is really great. So I feel like you guys are pretty much all over that. But the more you use those channels, the more open you become, the more you start to follow people who are totally tangential to your area of interest. But that person might be the one person who ends up being the something at Google who can chuck you a bit of sponsorship money to make an event happen, or who can give you a venue for free to launch your thing, or whatever it happens to be. And that's how a lot of our things are generated, just by those kind of chance encounters, which feel like chance, but they're really not. They're because we're just open all the time. You may have seen a slide which is, I tweet, therefore I am. And that's pretty much the mantra of Dominic, who's my business partner, who he co-directs FutureGov with me. He is basically on Twitter all the time, to the point where Twitter started an investigation into people who they thought might not be real. And Dom was on their list. Because he's on Twitter all the time. But, like 10,000 followers gets you somewhere. It gets you free venues for your hastily put together events, and it gets you sponsorship for stuff. And it's really, really important. It may not feel like a valuable connection at the time, but it turns out to be quite fruitful. And you can do stuff in return, because like Google, as one of our partners, want to get closer to government, and we work with local government. So actually, we're kind of doing them a favour as well, and it's not like we're scrounging off them. It's like we're finding kind of mutually beneficial uses for resources, and that goes back to that kind of simple thing where you trade ideas and resources in a kind of mutually beneficial way. I can't really remember what my... Oh, hello. Oh, it's working again. Yes. And yeah, so actually we're kind of... This is pretty much my last point. I think it's all very well to do that, but you need people who are there to kind of build those bridges. You need people who are very good at kind of translating between the different languages that go on, because, I don't know whether what I'm saying kind of resonates with I'm seeing a few nods, and that's really encouraging, but actually at the same time, you guys are from a completely different world to me, and it's really great that I have the opportunity to kind of get to know you and find out what you're doing. But I think what you need is people who can kind of bridge those worlds and kind of do a bit of a translation job so that everybody is kind of able to talk to each other and not just keep missing each other because they're all at cross purposes. And those kind of, some people call them intrapreneurs. That's a little bit pretentious for my liking. But bridge builders kind of says what's on the tin. Oh, and also this is pretty much FutureGov's business strategy, is basically, yes, whatever it is, yes, we'll do it. Because you can spend a lot of time getting caught up in well, these are all the reasons why we can't do something, but basically the answer is yes, we'll just figure the rest out. It's worked all right for us so far. That's a nice quote from the guy who founded meetup.com, nice web tool to get people to meet up. And this is where you guys come in. And I'll leave you with this, which is my challenge to you guys. Thank you for bearing with me and the technical difficulties.